There's a kind of exhaustion sleep doesn't touch. You wake up, you go to work, you do what needs to be done, but inside, something feels empty. Not broken, just worn down. You're not falling apart, you're still functioning, still responsible, still showing up. And that's exactly what makes this kind of tiredness hard to explain. Physical fatigue asks for rest. Emotional exhaustion asks for something deeper. It shows up when you've been carrying pressure silently, holding things together, absorbing expectations that were never really yours to begin with. Especially as a man, you're taught to endure, to push through, to stay composed. So you do, until the weight becomes quite heavy. This video isn't here to motivate you. It's not here to tell you to be stronger or try harder. Stoic philosophy doesn't work that way. This is about restoring order inside your mind, about setting things down, about remembering that you are not weak. You are overloaded. And relief begins when you stop carrying what was never yours to hold. You're not weak. You're carrying too much. If there's one thought that keeps many men silently exhausted, it's this one. I shouldn't feel like this. You tell yourself that other people have it worse. You remind yourself that you're still standing, still working, still providing. From the outside, nothing looks broken. So when exhaustion creeps in, it doesn't feel like fatigue. It feels like failure. But emotional exhaustion doesn't come from being weak. It comes from being strong for too long, without relief. Most men weren't taught how to put things down. They were taught how to hold more, to stay in control, to absorb pressure without showing it, to be the calm one, the reliable one, the one who doesn't crack. Over time, that role becomes invisible and heavy. You stop noticing how much you're carrying because carrying has become your identity. You don't just manage your own responsibilities, you manage expectations. You manage other people's emotions. You manage outcomes you don't fully control. You feel responsible not only for what you do, but for how everything turns out. And when something goes wrong, at work, at home, in relationships, you don't ask what happened. You ask what I should have done better. That constant self-monitoring drains the mind. Stoic philosophy understood this centuries ago. The mind becomes exhausted not from effort itself, but from effort directed at things outside its control. When you try to manage outcomes instead of actions, reactions instead of principles, other people's feelings instead of your own conduct, your inner world slowly loses order. Not all at once. Quietly. Gradually. That's why emotional exhaustion often feels confusing. There's no single breaking point, just a steady accumulation of weight. You keep showing up. You keep saying yes. You keep holding it together. Until one day you realize you're tired in a way that rest doesn't solve. This is especially hard for men because exhaustion doesn't show up as tears or collapse. It shows up as numbness, irritability, withdrawal, a sense that everything takes more effort than it used to. You still function, but without clarity, without presence, without peace. Stoicism never asked men to suppress pain. It asked them to carry only what was truly theirs to carry. Strength in this philosophy isn't about enduring everything. It's about discernment, knowing what deserves your energy and what doesn't. If you're emotionally exhausted, it's not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a signal, a message from your inner life saying the load has exceeded what's necessary, that you've been holding things that were never meant to be held indefinitely. Relief doesn't begin with pushing harder. It begins with subtraction, by removing what doesn't belong. Recognizing that strength isn't proven by suffering in silence. It's proven by restoring order before collapse forces it upon you. You're not weak. You are overloaded. And the moment you understand that, the path forward becomes clearer. Emotional exhaustion is a boundary problem. Most men believe they're exhausted because they're doing too much. working too many hours, taking on too many responsibilities, pushing themselves past their limits, and on the surface, that seems true. But if you look closer, emotional exhaustion rarely comes from effort alone. It comes from exposure. You're not tired because you work hard. You're tired because too many things have access to you. Your time, your attention, your emotional space, your sense of responsibility. Somewhere along the way, the lines blurred, and you stopped noticing where you ended, and everything else began. Every message feels urgent. Every request feels personal. Every problem feels like it needs your involvement. You answer emails late at night. You replay conversations in your head. You carry other people's moods with you long after the interaction is over. And even when no one is asking for anything, your mind stays on alert, as if something might be demanded at any moment. That constant openness drains you. Stoic philosophy rests on a simple but demanding principle. Distinguish what belongs to you from what does not. Your actions are yours. Your values are yours. Your effort is yours. But outcomes, reactions, expectations, and other people's emotions are not. When those boundaries disappear, the mind is forced into a role it was never meant to play. Constant management of the uncontrollable. In modern life, boundaries don't collapse in dramatic ways. They erode quietly. A work message was answered during dinner. A problem you solved that was never assigned to you. An expectation you accept without questioning it. None of these feels dangerous in isolation, but together they create a life where nothing ever truly ends, and rest never fully begins. For many men, this is especially painful because responsibility becomes identity. You don't just have responsibilities. You are the responsible one. So saying no feels like failure. Stepping back feels like letting someone down. Creating distance feels selfish. And slowly, your inner world fills with obligations you never consciously chose. Emotional exhaustion is the result. Not because you're incapable, but because you've been available to everything, without limits, without separation, without pause. Stoicism does not teach withdrawal from life. It teaches precision, knowing where your responsibility ends so your strength doesn't dissolve into everything around you. Boundaries are not walls, they are structure. And without structure, even the strongest person eventually collapses under the weight of constant exposure. Rest, from this perspective, isn't avoidance. It's a repair. It's the act of closing what was left open too long. Of reclaiming space where clarity can return. Of reminding yourself that not every message deserves an answer, not every problem requires your involvement, and not every expectation deserves your compliance. When you begin to restore boundaries, energy doesn't return all at once, but something else does first: order. And with order comes relief. Not because life becomes easier, but because it becomes clearer. And clarity is what allows strength to last. Stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" When exhaustion sets in, most men don't complain. They interrogate themselves. You replay conversations. You revisit decisions. You analyze your reactions late at night when everything is quiet and your defenses are down. Why am I irritated for no reason? Why can't I focus as I used to? Why do I feel disconnected from people I care about? The question underneath all of it is almost always the same. What's wrong with me? That question feels responsible, mature, even strong. But it's also one of the most damaging habits an exhausted mind can have. When you're tired, your mind doesn't search for truth. It searches for explanations that keep you in control. And blaming yourself feels like control. If something is wrong with you, then in theory, you can fix it. You can work harder, think harder, adjust yourself again. So you turn inward, not with curiosity, but with pressure. Stoic philosophy warns against this trap, not because self-reflection is bad, but because the wrong question locks you into a loop you can't escape. Asking, "What's wrong with me?" assumes the problem is your character, your mindset, your strength. And once you believe that, every feeling becomes evidence against you. Fatigue becomes weakness. Frustration becomes failure. Emotional distance becomes proof that you're broken. This is how overthinking begins, not as reflection, but as self-surveillance. You monitor your moods. You judge your reactions. You try to correct feelings instead of understanding them, and the more you analyze yourself under pressure, the more exhausted you become. The Stoic reframe is simple, but uncomfortable. Stop assuming the problem is you. A better question changes everything. What am I carrying that doesn't belong to me? That question shifts the focus away from self-blame and toward responsibility. Not in a moral sense, but in a practical one. It asks you to examine your mental load, not your worth. To separate effort from ownership. To recognize that exhaustion often comes from managing things you were never meant to manage. Other people's expectations, other people's reactions, outcomes that depend on variables you don't control. Emotional climates you try to stabilize without being asked. These don't feel like burdens at first. They feel like they are mature. Leadership, being dependable. But over time, they invade your inner space and demand constant attention. The mind was not designed to hold everything. When it tries, clarity disappears. Overthinking is the mind's attempt to solve overload by thinking harder. But thinking harder about the wrong things only deepens exhaustion. You go in circles, not because you're incapable of insight, but because the problem isn't insight, it's accumulation. A simple practice can begin to interrupt this loop. Not a long journaling session, not a motivational exercise, just a quiet separation. Ask yourself, what is truly my responsibility? Your actions, your choices, your values, your effort in the present moment. Then ask, what is not? Other people's feelings, their interpretations, their reactions, outcomes that depend on forces beyond you. This isn't denial, it's accuracy. When you stop treating everything as a personal failure, your mind begins to soften, not because life suddenly improves, but because the internal pressure eases. You're no longer fighting yourself on top of everything else. Nothing is wrong with you. You're tired because you've been carrying too much and blaming yourself for the weight. When you stop asking the wrong question, you don't just gain clarity, you gain space. And space is where recovery begins. The hidden cost of caring. Too much. Caring is often praised as a virtue. It's seen as maturity, kindness, and strength of character. And for many men, caring becomes a quiet obligation. Something you do without question, without recognition, without limit. You listen, you support, you absorb, you stay calm when others are emotional. You stay reasonable when situations become messy. From the outside, it looks stable. Inside, it can feel like erosion. Caring by itself is not the problem. But caring without boundaries slowly drains the inner life. When you become the person who is always okay, always understanding, always willing to give a little more, you stop noticing how much of yourself is being spent. You don't feel the loss all at once. You feel it as numbness, as distance, as the sense that you're present in body, but not fully there anymore. Many men are exhausted not because they lack empathy, but because they have too much of it, and no structure to contain it. You become the one who smooths things over, the one who lets things go, the one who says, it's fine, even when it isn't. You carry other people's stress home with you. You replay their frustrations. You adjust yourself so conflict doesn't escalate. And because you're capable of handling it, the expectation silently grows that you always will. Stoic philosophy draws a crucial distinction that modern culture often ignores. Compassion does not require self-erasure. You can care without dissolving. You can understand without absorbing. You can be present without becoming responsible for everything you witness. But when that line disappears, caring turns into self-abandonment. The cost of this isn't dramatic. It doesn't look like a breakdown. It looks like a slow withdrawal. You stop expressing what you need. You stop reacting honestly. You start managing yourself to keep everything else stable. Over time, your inner world becomes quieter, not peaceful, but empty. This is especially painful for men because the role of the stable one is rewarded. You're praised for being reliable, for being patient, for not making things about yourself. So you learn to equate restraint with strength. But restraint without release becomes suppression, and suppression doesn't disappear. It accumulates. Stoicism never asked for that kind of sacrifice. True Stoic compassion begins with self-respect. Not ego, not entitlement, but the recognition that your inner life matters. That preserving your clarity and strength is not selfish. It's necessary. Without it, you eventually have nothing real left to offer. You can care deeply and still say no. You can be generous without being endlessly available. You can show up without disappearing. The moment you believe that caring requires you to shrink, exhaustion becomes inevitable. Emotional exhaustion often arrives when you've spent too long being the emotional buffer for everyone else. When you've carried harmony at the expense of honesty. When you've chosen silence over truth again and again. But caring does not mean sacrificing yourself piece by piece. The Stoic path is not cold, it is precise. It teaches you to give where giving is chosen, not where it is extracted. To care from a place of strength, not depletion. And to remember that compassion that costs you your inner stability is no longer a virtue. It's an imbalance. You don't need to stop caring. You need to stop disappearing while you do it. You don't need motivation. You need permission to rest. When men feel exhausted, the usual response isn't rest. It's more pressure. Push harder. Get disciplined. Find motivation. Fix the problem. In a culture built on hustle, slowing down feels dangerous. Rest is framed as weakness, as laziness, as falling behind. So even when your body stops responding and your mind feels heavy, you tell yourself you just need one more push. But emotional exhaustion doesn't respond to motivation. It responds to permission. Many men don't rest because they can't. They rest because they don't believe they're allowed to. Somewhere along the way, productivity became proof of worth. Being busy became an identity, and stopping, even briefly, started to feel like betrayal. In your role, of your standards, of the image you've built. Stoic philosophy takes a different stance. Rest, when practiced with intention, does not collapse. It is discipline. It is the ability to pause without losing direction, to step back without abandoning responsibility. The Stoics understood that a mind constantly in motion loses its edge, not because it lacks effort, but because it lacks order. There is a critical difference between rest and avoidance. Avoidance is running from what matters. Rest is preparing yourself to return to it with clarity. One dissolves responsibility, the other preserves it. Yet hustle culture blurs that distinction. It convinces you that any pause is escape, that silence is weakness, that stepping away means you're losing ground. So you stay engaged even when you're depleted. You keep reacting, keep responding, keep explaining, and your inner world never truly shuts down. Stoic rest differs from what modern culture promotes. It isn't indulgence, it isn't a distraction, it doesn't require disappearing from your life. Often, it's quiet and uncomfortable. It's choosing not to respond immediately, letting a message sit, allowing a problem to exist without solving it in the moment, resisting the urge to explain yourself when no explanation is required. Silence, in this sense, is not passivity. It is a restraint. So is stillness. So is stepping away from constant input. So is doing less on purpose, so your attention can regain depth. These forms of rest don't announce themselves. They don't earn praise, but they restore something essential: your capacity to think clearly and act deliberately. Many men are tired, not because life demands too much, but because they never stop engaging with those demands. There is no boundary between effort and recovery, no space where the nervous system can reset. And without that space, even discipline becomes unsustainable. You don't need another motivational push. You need to remove the guilt from resting. To understand that stepping back is not quitting, it's recalibrating. Strength isn't proven by constant motion, it's proven by control. And sometimes, control means knowing when to pause. Permission to rest isn't something someone else gives you. It's a decision, a quiet one. But once you make it, the mind begins to settle. And in that stillness, you don't lose your edge, you regain it. What the Stoics did when the mind was heavy. When the Stoics felt the weight of life pressing down, they did not search for ways to escape it. They did not distract themselves. They did not look for motivation to feel better. Instead, they asked a more grounded question: what must be put back in order? For the Stoics, a heavy mind was not a personal failure. It was a sign that the inner world had become cluttered, filled with expectations, fears, and concerns that did not belong there. So their first response was not emotional, but structural. They simplified. Marcus Aurelius returned again and again to the same practice. Stripping life down to what was essential, he reminded himself of what he could control: his judgments, his actions, his character, and deliberately released everything else. Not with indifference, but with discipline. This mental separation reduced noise. It created space where clarity could return. When anxiety rose, the Stoics did not argue with their feelings. They redirected their attention. They grounded themselves in the present moment, not through positivity, but through realism. What is happening right now? What is required of me at this moment? By narrowing their focus, they prevented the mind from scattering into imagined futures and unresolved pasts. They also lowered unnecessary demands on themselves. Stoic discipline was not about constant self-pressure. It was about conserving strength. When the mind was heavy, they reduced ambition temporarily. They did what was necessary, not everything possible. This restraint protected their inner balance. Silence played an important role. The Stoics valued stillness because it allowed the mind to settle. They withdrew from excessive conversation and stimulation, not as avoidance, but as maintenance. In quiet moments, they recalibrated their thinking. They reminded themselves of impermanence, of proportion, of the smallness of many worries when seen clearly. Most importantly, they practiced acceptance without surrender. They did not deny hardship, but they refused to add emotional resistance to it. Suffering, they believed, increases when the mind fights reality. Calm returns when effort is focused on response rather than outcome. For modern men, this approach is deeply relevant. When life feels overwhelming, the instinct is to push harder or distract yourself. The Stoics did neither. They slowed the mind, reduced its load, and restored order through clarity, restraint, and presence. When the mind was heavy, the Stoics didn't collapse under the weight. They reorganized themselves beneath it and stood firm, a quiet reset. You can practice tonight. Tonight is not about progress, it's about relief. When you're emotionally exhausted, the idea of working on yourself can feel overwhelming. Another routine, another promise to improve, another demand placed on a mind that's already carrying too much. What you need instead is something gentler, a way to reset without effort, without performance, without pressure. This reset is not meant to change who you are. It's meant to steady you. Start by allowing a few minutes of intentional stillness. No phone, no background noise, no planning for tomorrow. Just sit and let the momentum of the day slow down. You don't need to control your thoughts. You don't need to clear your mind. You're simply creating a pause, a break in the constant movement that has kept your nervous system alert for too long. That pause matters more than it seems. Once things feel slightly quieter, bring your attention to one truth, not something polished or motivational. Just one sentence that reflects how you actually feel right now. It might be uncomfortable. It might feel incomplete. That's fine. The purpose isn't clarity, it's honesty. When you name what's real, even briefly, the inner tension eases. You stop fighting yourself. Then comes the most important part of this reset, deciding what you will not carry forward. Choose one mental burden and consciously set it down for the night. Not forever, not until tomorrow morning, just for now. It could be a worry that keeps replaying, a responsibility you've taken on unnecessarily, an expectation that isn't yours to fulfill. You're not solving it, you're containing it, and that distinction is crucial. This act of setting something down is not avoidance, it's maintenance. It tells your mind that it doesn't have to hold everything at once, that it's allowed to rest without things falling apart. This quiet reset won't give you answers. It won't erase problems, but it will give you space. And space is what emotional exhaustion steals from you first. You don't need to rebuild tonight. You don't need a breakthrough. You just need to restore enough inner order to feel grounded again. And sometimes, that small act of gentleness is the strongest thing you can do. Before you close this video, take a moment to remember what truly matters. Nothing is wrong with you. You are not broken. You are not weak. What you're feeling is the natural result of carrying too much for too long. Responsibilities, expectations, and emotional weight that were never meant to be held all at once. This video was never about pushing you to become someone else. It was about helping you see clearly again. Emotional exhaustion is not a personal failure. It's a signal, a sign that your inner world needs order, not more pressure. Strength doesn't come from forcing yourself forward when you're depleted. It comes from knowing when to pause with intention. As you move on from here, try to practice just one thing you heard today. One moment of silence, one honest sentence, one boundary, even if it's temporary. Rest consciously, without guilt, without explanation. Rest not as escape, but as preparation for what comes next. Thank you for giving your time and attention to this space. Thank you for staying, reflecting, and allowing yourself to slow down. That alone is an act of strength. In the next video, we'll begin rebuilding, learning how to restore boundaries, discipline, and inner strength without burning yourself out again. For now, let yourself rest. We'll continue this journey together.